So I'm not going to bore you with the facts about how many people give up on new goals. We already know that at the beginning of the year, hardly anyone sticks to them long term. But what I do want to talk about today is why does that happen? And how can you set and pick goals that you'll actually achieve? My name is Clarissa and you're watching She Rocks at College, where college girls come to learn how to get better grades without the stress, overwhelm, and lack of social life. Why is it so hard to stick to the goals that we set for ourselves? Personally, I think it's because we want too much, too fast, and we're not really willing to stick to things long enough to see the results. So after a week and 2 days, when we haven't hit our goals, we quit and we chuck it up to it not being meant to be, or the plan not working, or us not being smart enough, and that's just complete BS. We set ourselves up for frustration and disappointment because we're focused on the wrong things at the wrong time. We set goals from a disconnected place instead of doing a self-reflection, figuring out where we are, what we've done, and where we're trying to go. If you've ever set a goal and failed, or if you've ever worked really hard towards a goal and find that you're not moving in the direction that you should be, it's because you've set your goals from this disconnected place. And that's really what the problem is. An example of this disconnection is when I see students who this past semester had an overall grade average of a D. And at the beginning of the semester, they're so full of excitement and, anticipation that they forget that they don't have the skills yet to get anything higher than a D. And so the goals that they set for them are to go from this D average to a 4.0. And it's not that this isn't possible for the student. It's not that they're not smart enough, but rather at this point in time, if they were to really assess where they stand, the skills that they have, it's not the right goal to set at this moment. It's important that we set goals that stretch us, that, cause us to evolve and improve and challenge ourselves. But we have to be careful not to set goals that are so big that if we don't achieve them right away, we're disappointed in ourselves, that we start to judge ourselves, judge our character, judge our worth. You want to set goals that are realistic for you to achieve in this moment. So how do we go about picking the right goal? Well, it starts with the self-reflection. And if you've been watching my YouTube channel, you would have seen that last week I filmed a video all about self-reflection. I gave you 5 questions that you needed to ask yourself before you ever set any goals for this new semester or this new year. Once you've done that self-reflection, we need to now figure out what's important to us in this moment. What's the thing that's going to take the #1 priority for the next month to 3 months? What am I going to intentionally work on and improve and create a plan around so that I can get better? I have a strategy that I use to do this, to figure out what my priorities should be for the moment, and it's adopted from Chalene Johnson. So she goes through these different areas of your life and she has you rate the different areas of your life on a 1 to 10 scale. 1 being it's the worst that it could possibly be. You're super, super, super unhappy with that area in your life. And 10 is it's perfect. It couldn't be better. There's nothing that you can do to improve it. Now what I've done is I've modified the areas that she has to apply a little bit more to the college setting. And so I'm going to go through the 7 areas that I want you to rate yourself in. The first area is academics. So I'm talking about your grades, your major, what you're studying. I'm talking about the academic portion of your college experience. So all of the grades, all of the classes, your professors, etc. The second area is your finances. So I'm talking about scholarship, financial aid, your personal money. So if you're working part-time or full-time, how do you feel about that on a 1 to 10 scale? your mental and physical health. So how do you feel about yourself emotionally right now? How do you feel about your mental status? How do you feel about your body? Whether it's just the physical appearance of your body or the amount of energy that you have to do the things that you want to do. The next area is your environment. So I'm talking about the actual school that you're in. Is it the right fit for you right now? I'm talking about your living space, your roommate, where you study, the places that are around you. How happy are you with all of that? Next is romance. Whether you're single or in a relationship, how do you feel about this area of your life right now? Are you happy with it or are you not happy with it? And then the last area is hobbies, joy, recreational activities, i.e. fun. Do you feel like you have enough play in your life? Is it a 1 or is it a 10? So next what I want you to do is I want you to take a look at all of the numbers that you gave every single one of those areas. And I want you to identify the 1 to 2 areas where you scored yourself the lowest. Now, something that might come as a surprise to you is that the areas where you scored the lowest might not have been where you thought you were going to score the lowest. And one of the things that actually reveals to us is that that's actually an area that is really important to us. And the reason why I can say this is because we tend to score ourselves the hardest, or we tend to be harder on ourselves in the areas in which we care a lot about. That's really important to us. And so you might have noticed that area maybe is your relationship, or maybe it's your academics and you thought that you didn't really care about grades that much, or that it was in your finances. Don't judge where you scored the lowest, just notice it, become aware of it. Now, out of these 1 to 2 areas where you scored the lowest number, I want you to pick one of these areas that you have control over to change. So if it's your grades, you have full control over whether or not that improves. If we're talking about your relationship and it's that you want to change something about your partner, unfortunately, you can't change your partner, but you can change the way that you interact with them. So again, you want to pick one of the 2 areas in which you scored the lowest, because this is going to be your number 1 priority for the next 4 weeks. But like I said, the catch is you actually have to be able to change this area. You have control over changing it. Now, the reason why I say 4 weeks and why we're only focusing on the next 4 weeks is that it's easy to lose track. It's easy to lose motivation. It's easy to lose inspiration when we set goals that are too far away from where we currently are. So I like to have monthly goals, sometimes even 90-day goals or 3-month goals, because I can see the top of the mountain. I can see I don't have that much further to go. But when I focus on goals that are more long-term, 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, I tend to not care about them that much, and my motivation sort of wanes. So that's the reason why I say 4 weeks. So the next step in this goal setting process is you want to identify the result that you want to have at the end of 4 weeks in this specific area. What can you actually achieve over the next 4 weeks or 30 days? The guideline that I'm going to give you is that this goal needs to be very specific. It needs to be measurable. So you need to be able to track that you're actually improving. It needs to be actionable by you and you alone. And it needs to be realistic. You have to actually be able to achieve it over the next 4 weeks. Today, I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into picking a specific and realistic goal. And in the next video, I will talk about what I mean when I say actionable by you and what I mean when I say it has to be measurable. So an example of a specific goal that's realistic is, okay, I've done this self-assessment last semester. I was around the C- to D- range, let's just pretend. And my goal is to increase my very first exam in all of my classes by 15 points. Let's say that in my assessment, I realize that I do really poorly on the first exam, and that kind of brings me down later on in the semester. So what my goal is going to be is to get high grades at the beginning of the semester, but I need to be specific because get high grades isn't specific enough. So I want to go from a C- to a B- range on my very first exam across all of my classes. That's a very specific and realistic goal. I can achieve that in 30 days because that's typically when the first exam of the semester rolls around, and that gives me enough time to be able to do the work in order to achieve that B-. What you're aiming for is you're aiming for a goal that will cause that area of your life where you scored the lowest to go up by a couple of points, a few points. So maybe you scored a 4 in your academics, and by the end of the next 30 days, you want to feel more like a 5 or a 6 or a 6 or a 7. That's really the aim of picking the goals and setting the correct goals. I'm also going to give you an example of a goal that would not be specific and not be realistic. So like I said, I've normally been a C-, D- student. An unrealistic goal would be to land on the dean's list within the first 4 weeks of the semester. That's just not going to happen, number one. And two, it's not really specific enough, right? What are the grades that it takes to land on the dean's list? That would be a more specific goal. And the reason why it's not realistic is because the time frame is off, number one. And two, I don't have the skills yet in order to be able to make that big of a jump. So again, remember, when you set these goals, when you pick these goals, they need to be specific and they need to be realistic. So how many goals should you actually set? Well, for this short of a period, 30 days, 4 weeks, I say no more than 3 goals to focus on. And you really want 2 of those goals to be directly related to your number 1 priority, or the area in which you scored yourself the lowest. Why? Because you want to increase that area. You want to increase your happiness in that area. And that's only going to happen if you put intentional focus on taking actions and setting goals around that area. And then your last goal can be whatever you want it to be. My suggestion is that you take a look at your list and you find the next thing that you're the most and happiest about and create a goal around that. So I just gave you a great start to setting goals that you can actually achieve. But what you'll notice is that there's something missing, right? It feels like there's something missing. Well, what's missing is the how. What are the specific actions that you're going to take over the next 4 weeks to jump from that C- to a B-? If you set a goal around weight loss, what are the specific actions that you're going to take to lose those 5 pounds over the next 4 weeks? And that's exactly what I'm going to be covering in the next video. I'm going to teach you how to pick the right actions so that achieving your goal becomes inevitable. Now I want to hear from you. I would love for you to share in the comments what your number 1 priority is going to be and one of the goals that you've set around it, keeping in mind that it has to be specific and realistic. And if you haven't already watched the first video of this goal setting for college students series, make sure that you watch it, because that self-reflection really is key if you want to get started on this goal setting process the right way. As always, thank you so much for watching, and if you're into this kind of stuff, you want to learn how to get better grades without the stress, overwhelm, and lack of social life so that you can actually enjoy your academic experience, make sure that you subscribe to the channel. You can do so by clicking on my face somewhere around this screen. Until next time, friends, bye.